This weekend, all three readings have got to do with God's laws. And if you're like me, the first thought that pops into my mind is, what is the relationship between God's commandments and human freedom or human flourishing? In other words, does God's rules, laws, commandments hinder or enhance our human freedom? Does his rules, laws, commandments help me to become a more happy person, or do they frustrate my life? It's very interesting. One of the things that I enjoy about being a Catholic is how we view the human person in relationship with God. Now, we all know that we have bodies. All of us look differently. And we all know that we don't interchange our bodies. The body that we're born with is usually the body that we're going to have. But another component to our lives is not only that we have bodies, but our bodies are actually formed by our soul, the life-giving principle. The soul is that which gives us life. We know that once the soul leaves the body, we are no longer, say, this person, like Father Dominic. We are the corpse of this person or the corpse of Father Dominic. So this life-giving principle we call the soul is very important. And again, just like the body, the soul, we don't exchange souls. It's the soul is unique to each and every one of us as individuals. But within the soul are two really important powers. The power to know, or our intellect, and the power to choose, to love, or our free will. We can, by our minds, our intellects, we can know a lot of different things. And by our free will, we can choose to love or not love other people or other things. And so within our souls is these two powerful powers, which are our intelligence and our ability to choose. Now, I mention that because that's where the rub is, or maybe the perceived rub, between how we live and how God commands. Allow me to roll back to the second reading, which is from Paul's letter, in which he talks about God's wisdom that is built deep down inside of us. It's hidden. It's mysterious. It's like our spiritual DNA, this God's wisdom built inside of our souls. And just by the fact that we are formed by our souls, this DNA from God forms who we are. And this mysterious wisdom inside of us is a real treasure. And it is the key to understanding how we interact with God's commandments. But allow me to then roll back to the first reading. It comes from the book of Sirach. Sirach is a lawyer. He is someone who is trying to be a very pious, holy Jewish person a couple of hundred years before Jesus shows up. And how he is trying to live a holy life is by inserting himself into a great, intense study of the Jewish law. And so he reads the life of a holy person through the lens of the Jewish law. It goes on to say that God gives us two paths, the path to life, the path to death. And life is a series of choices in which we use our soul to come to know what God wants and to choose him freely in every decision that we make. And I like to say that every decision that we make is either a step toward God or away from God, depending on the choices that we make, which are free and hopefully full of the knowledge of what God wants us to do. Let me give you a down-to-earth example. Friday, just a couple of days ago, I celebrated Mass for the Judge basketball team. And I asked them that, how do they play the game? and how do they enjoy the game is of critical nature to them. And the game that they play is kind of a microcosm of their lives. So I went on to say, how many set plays does your coach have you memorize so that you can function within the basketball game? And they answered 30 set plays. And I first scratched my head saying, I don't know if I memorized 30 of anything, let alone complex basketball plays. But the point that I was making was, once the coach tells the players what play there are to run, usually through the point guard, all the players on the court know exactly what to do, where to position themselves so that they can have the best probability of making a basket. They don't just run around haphazardly. The second example I used for them was the rules of the game, and there are many. For instance, I asked them, what would happen if someone passed the ball to me and then I just ran to the basket without dribbling? Of course, one of the players raised his hand and said, well, you would be in violation of traveling, which is a call made against a player who takes many steps without dribbling the basketball. It's a violation and it's a turnover, so you have to turn the ball over to the opposing team. There are many other rules of the game, including, say, the sidelines, for instance. If the ball goes out of the court, then it is a turnover and it's given to the other team. They don't just have this one big, huge gymnasium without any sidelines or end lines. There is a dimension to the court, and that's where you play. So I asked them, what would happen if you didn't have set plays or rules? And they said, we wouldn't know what to do, and we wouldn't know if we were winning or losing. We wouldn't know if we won the game or not. And at the end of the season, we wouldn't know how we relate in terms of a record with other teams, whether we were in first place or last place or somewhere in the middle. It would be one big experience of frustration and confusion. Wouldn't know if we were successful, and in fact, we wouldn't even know if we were enjoying the game in the first place. Well, as it goes in basketball, it goes in many other aspects of our lives. Clearly, we need a structure to our lives to enjoy our lives. Clearly, we need a structure to our lives to experience the freedom of not only enjoying a basketball game, but also enjoying life. Clearly, we need a structure to our lives so that we know that the choices that we make will lead us to God or away from God. So structure, rules, laws, commandments are actually the foundation of human freedom. These commandments guide our freedom so that we can make choices that will help us become more loving people and experience happiness in this life and in, of course, the next life to come. And so it's interesting. Like basketball, like driving a car, like forming a friendship, like growing in a relationship with God, there has to be some kind of structure. There has to be some kind of commandments, which Jesus spells out in the gospel. If you want to live a happy life, then you don't take stuff that's not yours from another person. And of course, all the other commandments. So my friends, it's a very interesting reality. We have good minds and we have free will and we can make great choices, but they are within the framework of God's commandments that are embedded in our souls when we are conceived. They are the DNA in which we live a happy and fruitful life. Don't see law as this constraining straitjacket in which you are unable to make any choices, but rather see God's commandments as a framework in which you can, yes, freely make the choices that you make. God bless you.